Well, good morning, everybody. I hope it is with you. This is Patricia and David, Gulf Harbour Radio, and we are on at this time every morning except Sunday. This morning it is extremely foggy here. We can hardly see the water, or we can't see the water actually, for those that know where we live on top of the ridge here. We are surrounded with fog, absolutely no wind. It is 16 degrees, a kind of a damp 16 degrees with the fog. 1028.3 and very steady. So we are, I don't know where the high is, but I'd suggest that we might be in it, in the middle of it anyway. So that's the morning here, and there's not an awful lot of wind out there. Looking at the messages that are coming in on the YIT site, www.yit.nz. We have another adventure sort of meandering towards, from the top of Venetian towards Port Resolution. East-southeast 20 up there, so they're not complaining, I wouldn't imagine. East-southeast 20, but they want daylight to go in. Other than the bright light from Mount Yazgur, I don't know how to pronounce that, but anyway, the volcano at Tanna was certainly lighting up the sky last night, according to Frank. 30% cloud cover there and a 1.5 metre swell. Pilgrim don't seem to have an awful lot of wind where they are. They're at 2831 south and 177 east. Clear skies and not much wind. Light 5 knots of wind from the northeast. So they're not exactly going well. I suspect they've got the engine on, because 6 knots is not insignificant. 2C2, well, way over towards the east, 45 miles from Papeete. So they look as if they're going to be the first ones to Papeete of the quite sizable fleet that's heading in that direction. So they've still got the front over them. Lots of lightning last night, which might explain why we're not hearing anything from Bright Angel, because we haven't heard from them for a couple of days. They might have had a problem with the old lightning strike, but 2C2 closing on Papeete have a north-northeast 5 knots with 1.5 metre seas. They haven't checked in too recently, but we have got Surreal 2 and Pizzazz almost, I think they've got a rope between them, coming along, doing quite well behind them. This was almost a day ago now. They were at 31 and 168, doing a good job of just keeping an easterly course there with a little bit of north in it. And oh, here's Bright Angel 18 hours ago, so they're at 22. Hang on, this is 18 hours ago. David's just rushing to write it down. 22, 39 and 151 west, and they had northwest 17 to 20, so that's a pretty good direction, but the seas were rough. And of course they've got the squalls. They'll be really, really keen to get in, I'm sure. And Papeete is a rather nice place to get into once you work out where you're going.
Next week's not so great, though.
No, next week's not so great. Goodness gracious me. And here's me thinking I'd really like to be heading to Papeete. I'd have to say French Polynesia is our absolutely, without doubt, favourite place in the ocean. Southwest Pacific anyway. But talking about uncomfortable seas, let's get on to a bit of news. There was, I think David mentioned yesterday, a couple of very nasty lows in the Southern Ocean to the east of us here. There was an article in the paper this morning. There is a buoy that measures waves, and they have actually measured the highest one they have ever recorded, 23.8 metres high. That's over 7 stories. That was Tuesday night near Campbell Island in the Southern Ocean. Could you imagine that? 23.8 metre high seas. So I don't think a good ship Chameleon would want to be anywhere near that. But it just shows you what can happen when we have these deep Southern Ocean lows. They certainly put a swell up, which when you're in the islands is kind of good for those people that are into windsurfing and the like. But talking about boats, the Volvo boats had a very exciting, well, sort of, arrival in Newport. It took them 16 days from their last stop to get there, but the last 2 miles took 3 hours. They just got the conditions that we've got this morning, a lot of fog and amazing changes in position. Map Free, the Spanish boat Map Free, was actually running 5th during most of that race and ended up in the last half a mile getting in first. So it passed Team Brunel. They changed just in that last, in the fog, they Map Free managed to get just a little puff of wind to take them into first place. So they were all very excited. Well, what's the other news? I mentioned yesterday there has been quite a lot of world response to President Trump's withdrawal from the Iran nuclear agreement. I mentioned that US Secretary of State Mike Pompeo was going to Korea to sort out the final meeting that they're going to have, the two leaders, and he has returned today with the 3 Americans that were detained in North Korea. So it does appear that the Koreans are doing their best to get things pretty stable for the meeting. That was a good move on their part for sure. Big news for the Aucklanders in the paper this morning. We are going to get, or so they say, a $6 billion light rail system. Anyone who has attempted to get into Auckland will know that we usually have stop and go traffic jams. And so this light rail is going to go from the airport to the city and then up to Kumu. It's a proposal at the moment to be funded by the Superannuation Fund, which is our equivalent of the Social Security Fund. David's got a comment here.
But National has said if they get in the next election, they're going to can that project.
Yeah, well, it's a proposal. We've got lots of proposals from our new government actually to spend money that they actually haven't got at the moment. So we'll have to wait and see what happens. It's much more exciting over the ditch in Australia. They have decided to fire 5 more Australian politicians who have they've discovered have dual citizenship. You have dual citizenship in the colonies here if you've got a parent or grandparent that was born in the UK, and you might not have even been there, but that means you have dual citizenship. And if they find that out, they will say that you cannot be a politician if you have dual citizenship. So they've just discovered 5 more in Australia that have dual citizenship. So out they go. Pretty tough over there. All right, let's have a look if there's anybody else out there that wants to give us a report. Tell us what it's like in the islands, or at least tell us that we are getting out to the islands. I don't know how radio waves go way up into the sky and bounce off when they have to get through fog to start with, but is there anybody out there that can give us a report? Wow, nothing heard. Eagle's Wings say it's calm and foggy in Whangarei, so their barometer is pretty much the same as ours, 1028. So we are indeed sitting in the middle of the high across the upper North Island here. Good morning, you guys, and anybody else that's listening on streaming. So, yep, not very wonderful conditions for sailing anywhere at the moment, but pretty good conditions for getting those final jobs done on the boat. And I think David said last night there's some pretty exciting weather coming up in a few minutes, so we'll have to wait and see what that is. Haven't talked to him about that this morning yet. Too busy nattering about world news, because there is quite a bit going on at the moment, which you will thankfully be absent from when you are relaxing out there in the ocean. Another call to see if we can find out where Bright Angel is at the moment, or anybody else that's out there that might want us to include things on the weather summary. Those that are interested in Ron and Sue's progress on Heatwave, they don't have a radio working at the moment, unfortunately, but they are trying to get east of the Kermadex. They're at 3831 south and 17948 west. They've crossed the date line, and they came from Picton, so they've got a bit of a long trip ahead of them. Is there anybody wanting to let me know that we are in fact getting out there? Okay, a couple there. Let's start with Navarra. Go ahead.
Good morning. We're on heading to Fiji. We're 27 south, 17646 east. We've got an easterly of about 12 knots and going nice and fine. Over.
Oh, that would be quite pleasant. An easterly of 12 for Navara at 2714 and 17646 east. What are the seas like? Are you getting much effect of those big swells over?
No, not all.
Oh, that sounds rather good then. So thank you for that, and you presumably are hearing us well to call in.
They're in a good position.
David just said you are in a good position, so good going there. There was somebody in behind Navara. Who was that? Good morning, Ron. Well, you guys left in a fairly interesting time, and I've just talked about your role there. David, are you going to have any wind for Pilgrim? Just a reminder that you've got them at 2831 and 177 east. He'll have a look up, because I bet you would like to have a nice easterly 12 as well, Ron. Over.
Yeah, we're looking forward to that. We've got very little wind here, but probably slightly north of the east of about 5 knots, and very, very slight easterly lift.
Yeah, well, Navara is not all that much different from you, so it looks like it could improve. I better pass the microphone.
By midnight.
No, by midnight, he says. Hang on, I'll pass the microphone.
Yeah, good morning. By midnight, unfortunately, the wind is going to back a bit. Looks like northeast about 15. And the cause of that, of course, is that high is slowly moving east, and the isobars are getting bunched and pushed by the low to the west. I'll talk about that in a few minutes. But that's midnight. You've got to get up to about 25 south, and the isobars start to flatten out. I'm looking at tomorrow at about lunchtime, and 25, 26. Yeah, well, no more 25 south. Looks like easterly, so that'll give you a chance to break out of that. And then you've got to stay smartly on the way to Fiji, because the winds very slowly, starting from 26, 27, 28 south, are going to stay northeast. And as further north you go, they're trending that way, but you can stay in front of it, you'll have easterlies. What's your ETA for Fiji? Over.
That's a good point. Just depends on whether we can get on top of the wind or not, David.
Yeah.
Yes, but are you going to use your motor? Over.
We're definitely using motor. We've got diesel in the year-old. Not all the better use it.
Yeah, it's looking like I'm bringing things forward to Monday, so that's quite a few days, obviously, from now, and still at between 25 and 20. Let's put it 23 to 25 northeast winds. They start to veer, or I wouldn't say veer, but the direction of the wind will be more or less easterlies at 21, 22 south, and that way all the way up to Fiji. So if you can get by Monday at least up to 20, you'll be in very good shape for the rest of the trip. Over.
Yeah, well, hopefully, for that Tuesday.
Oh, well, you should be okay then. Just keep plugging along. Don't dilly-dally down there, because those isobars will start bending as that high moves east. Over.
Thanks very much, David.
Shouldn't have told him that. He'll probably get the whip out. All right. So I presume Navara heard all of that as well, and anybody else that's on their way to Fiji. Just heard from Opua, Trevor and Jan on Willamie, and it's foggy up there as well, so it's pretty widespread. If you email us in, folks, just a reminder, I had one in from a boat whose name I can't remember, Please put your boat name in the subject line, just so we can keep track of who's where and who might be able to help you. The boat name in the subject line. Okay, is there anybody else before we, actually we better get on to the weather because there is quite a bit. So I'm going to pass the microphone and we'll pick up anybody else after the weather.
All right, good morning. And we start with the 500 millibar analysis. Fairly similar picture to yesterday, but there's a lot going on in the upper levels. Now we've got a shortwave trough just to the east of New Zealand as we've had. Now remember, these are moving very slowly. A ridge over the country, that meaning New Zealand, is very slowly moving east. And then we've got a very sharp shortwave over southeastern Australia and Tasmania. And it's this last short wave that is the real troublemaker. It's going to be a troublemaker. When I put the charts on a loop, the upper level charts on a loop, you can very readily see the area of high vorticity and spin, or I should say the area is plural. The wave itself closes off on Friday. Now what that means is, instead of looking like an upside down U, it's actually circular isoheights. Now, generally what that means is whatever's underneath it is going to do the same. So the lows that we've got that are under that will start to spin up as well, rotate quite aggressively. Usually it's the start of the end of the cycle for the surface cyclones. But they could go for a week like that, and this is going to go for a few days. So anyhow, the wave closes off on Friday, but then it decides to really spin up. It really starts to rotate, and all of that moves east of Sydney. So by Saturday, the center of this actually moves northeast a little bit. So instead of just going east, it's now trending to the northeast just a wee bit. And two areas of vorticity form. So this is what is going to happen based on that. So today, our New Zealand high, which as Patricia said is over us, is starting to leave the country moving east. It's still pretty strong, 1028 to 1030. The center east of East Cape. Now, in the Tasman, we've got two lows that have formed. The first lies near 35 and 160 east, 35, 160 east, just before lunch today. That's about the location. Now the second one is over Tasmania by then. Winds then up and down 170 east are north to northeast. The mean strength about 20 knots, 20 knots. So if you're going to New Caledonia, that's the unfortunate news. Now these winds are preceding a cold front that extends just about due north as well, and that goes up and down 165 east, 165 east. By lunch on Friday, that's tomorrow, the first low moves very, very rapidly to lie almost over the bottom of the South Island. Now this depression is moving almost 30 knots, so it's very active. It's moving very, very rapidly, and this is not unusual. If you were to see how it's driven, if you were to look at the shape of the 500 level, even the 700 millibar level, you can see, well, why it is being thrust in that direction. So it's really moving. Now the second depression moves off of Tasmania, and it moves east-northeast to about 37 and 153 east. That's 37 and 153 east. Okay, that's Friday. Now by noon on Saturday, the first depression is southeast of New Zealand. That's the one that was over the South Island, and now it's moved off, and it's out of the picture. But the second depression continues to move north. Now it's going up the Australian coast. So where it was going east, then it decided to go a little bit northeast. Well, now it's deciding it wants to go north. And again, if you were to look at your 700 and 500 charts, you could see how it's being driven by those upper level winds. And it becomes well wrapped up as well and quite intense. And the second area of vorticity that we talked about on this short wave at 500 millibar maintains the first cold front. So the cold front that goes up to the Coral Sea. Now the edge of it is now going to be over New Zealand, and it extends to just to the west of New Caledonia, almost a stone's throw from New Cal, just to the west of it. Now the second low now sits near 33 and 152 east. 33.3 and 152 east. Now by lunch on Sunday, the original cold front rolls over New Zealand. I don't know why it's always got to be a Sunday every time we want to do something. It seems this is the third Sunday in a row now. We've had front. So yeah, grumble, grumble. You don't like it. So by lunch on Sunday, as I said, here comes the cold front. Now, it had no parent low at breakfast on Sunday. So when I say had, I'm putting it in past tense. It hasn't happened yet, but the progs indicate there is no parent low to it. So it's being maintained by just the vorticity in the upper levels. However, by lunchtime, it links up with the circulation of that second low. That's now moving east to lie near 30 and 160 east, so 30 and 160 east. Now our high, meanwhile, is east of us. The center is out there at 33 and 170 west. But the western side of it is being squashed by the cold front and now the associated depression. So that means all the winds from 170 west to the dateline are northerly quadrant. In essence, no one in New Zealand should be going anywhere, at least not toward the islands at that point. Those of you that are underway, you're still okay if by then you're north of 25, preferably up around 22, 23. And you'll have easterlies at that point. They'll be about 20 knots and higher. And again, this is the Sunday time frame around the lunchtime, and I think that's 13 May. So those of you that are on the way, again, you're going to be chased by the shape of the isobars moving to the point that they provide northeasterlies. But if you stay in front of all of that, you'll still have the easterlies because the isobars haven't bent yet. So that's the story. Keep moving. Now, looking at satellite imagery this morning, this was about 5 o'clock I looked at this. Our low to the west is over Lord Howe, and it's looks pretty interesting on satellite imagery. It's quite active, and the front is pushing north to the Louisiades. Actually, it's a very juicy trough. And also, we have a trough that's sitting over the Solomons, and that tracks almost to Rotuma, for Rotuma. It was on top of Rotuma a few days ago. Then it went north. Now it's coming south again. And goes on from there to Wallis, and then just to the south of Samoa, and then it goes on to the southern Cooks. Weather for the Papeete area, if anybody's listening out there, it is going to be partly cloudy today with scattered showers and a pretty good chance of thunderstorms. It's been like that for a few days. Well, there's two things. There's an area of convergence, and there is a very weak frontal band, but it's very, very wide. And poor Bright Angel's been stuck in that now for, it seems like, 10 years. But it's just very, very uncomfortable. Unfortunately, it's going to remain so. Now, the wind is not all that strong near Papeete, near the central part of French Polynesia, maybe 10 knots, that kind of a thing. And the same for Thursday and Friday, Polynesia time, a day different. as you can guess, on the other side of the dateline. Now the wind shifts to the east on Saturday and Sunday. Still pretty light. Next week, though, I can't believe it, cloud and rain for Papeete. And also thunderstorms. A lot of fireworks for 2C2 and Bright Angel. Well, watch the decks. What more could you ask for? Tomorrow's weather for Pizzazz and Surreal out there near 30, 31, and 168 west, they could expect winds in the southeasterly direction in the 15-knot range. So they're under the influence of the high, which is going to be to their south to south-southwest by this weekend. Moving to the islands, weather today for Tonga on imagery shows scattered cloud moving east to west. You can tell it's fairly low cloud because of the direction that it's moving, and it's caught up in the lower atmospheric circulation. So they might get some scattered showers off and on. Winds look fresh today, southeast 20 to 25 knots, picking up to probably 25 knots this afternoon. Scattered cloud for Fiji, and the wind is up. PG Met has issued a strong wind warning for the group, so you could expect southeasterlies 20 to 25 knots in the open waters, and roughly the same thing tomorrow. And of course, the seas are going to be up as well, quite rough seas. Now, trough cloud does affect the top half of the group, looking at the latest loop, the IR loop, satellite image. I can see it just sort of bumping into and over the northern half of the group. Now over to Vanuatu, cloud is bearing down on Vanuatu from the north. This was at 5:30 this morning. The loop shows it getting about as far as Afate. So fresh winds are going to be present for most of the group, mostly easterlies, 15 to 20, but favoring the high side of that, so a lot of 20s. And again, these are mean winds, so you can have higher gusts than that. And also about the same thing tomorrow. New Caledonia looks pretty good on imagery. Scattered cloud, that's about it. Northeast winds for the lagoon, 15 to 20 knots. Tomorrow they'll be north-northeast to northeast, about 15 to 20. You know, that's actually a very good direction to get to Ile de Pin for the boats that are in the Maya or Bay du Crony.
It's a 4-day holiday.
It's what?
A 4-day holiday.
A 4-day holiday. Oh, there'll be a lot of boats moving around. So, yeah, they don't waste any time there. So, if you do want to get down to Ile de Pin, the wind direction is perfect for that. Getting down there on strong trades, very hard to do and very uncomfortable. So that's it for me. Any questions, comments, come now. I'll pass it over to the chief.
Yeah, they take their holidays very seriously in New Caledonia. It's Ascension Day today, so a holiday. And thank you, Alison. They customs are closed until Monday. Might as well, if you're closed on Thursday, you might as well take the next day off as well. They really do take their holidays very, very seriously in New Caledonia. It does sound nice. She's reported 10 knots of southeast at the moment. And Whistler, thanks also for the news from Savu Savu. Survivor Australia is in town filming up there for 3 months, just past the airport, so that will make it fairly busy up there. And Anthea are on their way with pretty light winds. They're at 33 south and almost 178 west. Very, very light and variable, as David has just discussed. But they made use of yesterday. They had a brilliant spinnaker run yesterday and sailed most of the night, so that was good. There is opportunities for using the sails. All right, is there anybody with anything before we close her down? Nothing heard. I better just have a look at the dashboard here. Alison says first yellow flags are fluttering in the anchorage this morning and a couple in the marina, so there are people arriving, so that's interesting. Okay, thank you all very much, everybody, and we will enjoy the very long weekend up there in New Caledonia. So it's about the only place on the screen at the moment that's clear of cloud. So that looks good. It's certainly not clear here, and it's very foggy all from here, Auckland, right up through Opua area. I'm going to take the ferry into town this morning, so I hope they know where they're going. Cheers all, and remember, if you do email us, please put your boat name in the subject line, and we will be back again tomorrow. The frequency is now all yours. Cheers all.